Let's jump the river and head over to the Illinois Policy Institute, where Director of Fiscal and Economic Research Bryce Hill is standing by. We talk about the taxes in Illinois all the time, but where exactly are they going? Hi, Bryce. How you doing?
Hey, Vaughn, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm okay. So you and I have talked about how ridiculously high the taxes are in Illinois for years, but we've never really took it apart like a Lego set. We've never really dug in here. So we're going to do that today. How about that?
Sounds great to me.
Okay. So you did an analysis, and how much would you say the average Illinoisan pays in just state taxes per year?
Absolutely. So the 15th was tax day. Everybody's thinking about income taxes. For the state of Illinois, the average tax return there. So for most people, that's a joint return or some variation close to that. The typical Illinoisan's paying just over $4,000, $4,030 in state income taxes alone. Just state income taxes, not to mention the second highest in the nation property taxes they're also paying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So property taxes, personal income taxes, taxes from this, taxes from that. The feds take their money. Medicare takes their money. Social Security takes their money. And you go home with about half of what you've actually earned.
Yeah, we actually just saw a study recently released by a website called Wallet Hub that tracks state and local finances and tax burdens. And they found that for the typical American, living in Illinois would be the most expensive state in terms of taxes. That's where we would have the highest tax burden for the average American income if they lived in the state of Illinois. So, without a doubt, one of the highest tax burdens in the nation. And after doing this analysis, the typical Illinois is not getting very much in return for those taxes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's down from 2022 by about $100. So there's that.
Yeah, the sad part about this is we haven't had a change in our state income tax rate since 2022. So that decline is only because the amount of incomes on tax returns, the amount of income claimed has gone down. So since 2021, 2022, Illinois is actually earning less money, less taxable income than they were just a few years ago.
Because people left.
Absolutely. We've seen the exit of tens of thousands, particularly high-income earners, but everybody across all backgrounds has been leaving the state according to IRS data. And I suspect it's in large part not only because of the negative effects on the economy that these large taxes have, but because the services that Illinoisans get in return for their high tax bills are lacking. So when we dug into the data of that $4,000, the largest category of spending
let me guess.
income tax. Go ahead.
Pensions.
Pensions and government employee benefits. That represents more than a quarter of that $4,000 tax bill. $1,115 on average goes to state employee pensions and government employee health care benefits and other auxiliary benefit costs. So that's the largest line item in the budget, larger than education, which everybody thinks, hey, I'm paying these taxes to fund education, to fund our schools. That gets a backseat compared to government employee benefits and pension costs.
Yeah.
So education is still a large item, and about a quarter of the budget. It's growing every single year because of the state's education-based funding formula. But unfortunately, we haven't seen things like test scores correspondingly increase, and at the same time, enrollment in our public schools is declining because of the people who are leaving. So it represents about a quarter of Illinoisans' income tax bills, not to mention that that's the primary driver of property taxes in the state. About two-thirds of your property tax bill goes to schools in some form or fashion. So schools are another major cost driver in your tax bills across the board.
I don't understand how the teachers' unions in Illinois, they like to strike. I mean, that's something they do. And then they include ridiculous things that have absolutely nothing to do with education, like housing and whatever else. They just like to throw stuff in there just to be jerks, but if you've only got 1/3 of Illinois students reading at grade level, what's going on?
Yeah, it's because it's about largely the Chicago Teachers Union flexing their political muscle and striking 3 times in the past dozen years or so, and they are all about maximizing the amount of money that they get rather than what's happening in the school systems. It's one of the reasons why we see them advocating for crazy positions and also advocating for types of schooling that have been proven to be ineffective and have been largely a waste of taxpayer resources. They're advocating for community-based schools, is what they call them, that have the lowest test scores, the highest dropout rates, the lowest proficiency, the highest tardiness, just any outcome you can think of across the schools in Illinois. These schools have the worst outcomes.
Yeah. And don't get us wrong. We're all about paying for education. We want our children educated and we want our teachers paid well, but there's got to be a little gas going into the engine here. There's got to be something making it move forward because this is stagnant. It's been this bad for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. It's we've now seen the three most recent contract negotiations from the Chicago Teachers Unions drive up costs tremendously for education, both in the state but also at the local level in the Chicago area. Property taxes there have doubled, and that's largely representative of what's happened across the state in that time. And like I said, most of that goes to educate. Most of that bill is responsible because of school district levies. But we did a previous analysis that looked at how much of those property tax dollars, that increase in property tax dollars, actually goes to services. And we found that less than 50 cents of every additional dollar goes towards services, either maintaining or providing new services. The rest of that money goes to pensions for teachers and other local government employees, other auxiliary benefits, like we mentioned, and then interest on debt. So less than 50 cents of every additional property tax dollar paid over the past 20-plus years has actually gone towards the provision of services that Illinoisans think that they're paying for. Instead, it's going to pensions, employee benefits, and debt.
Yeah.
And that's the exact same thing that we find basically in the income tax data analysis when we look at the state's general revenue fund.
And then you've got to look at all the people who are on disability who should probably be able to work but have decided to go that route. So human services, healthcare, public safety, economic growth, all of that other stuff, that's got a price tag too.
Absolutely. And, if any of your listeners or you happen to remember a couple months ago now, when Governor Pritzker gave his State of the Union address, one of the things that he touted was how much investment the state was putting into economic development and trying to attract employers, and all the great initiatives that he said the state was doing. Well, it's time for a reality check on that. Of your tax bill, of your $4,000 tax bill, less than $28 of that goes to support economic development expenses within the general fund's budget. So that's less than 1% of your taxes. Less than 1% of every dollar.
This guy's talking about wanting to run for president. I mean, come on, man.
Yeah, and it's also part of the reason why Illinois has one of the nation's highest unemployment rates. And we have a higher unemployment rate now than when Governor Pritzker took office back in 2019. We are one of the very last states to recover for job losses as a result of COVID-19 pandemic and government shutdowns. And it's all because, one, this incredibly high tax burden that we've been talking about, and two, the way we treat businesses in the state, and on top of the tax burden, we don't support workforce development the way that we should. We don't support entrepreneurs the way that we should. And as a result, we see lackluster outcomes, people not being able to find job opportunities in the state and looking for them elsewhere and finding them and then leaving.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I know that when you don't have jobs or people working, then people are on Medicaid and HUD and stuff like that. And that takes a lot of your tax money too.
Absolutely, it's a dangerous negative feedback loop to get into, and one that Illinois really has to buck to be able to spur some economic growth here, make sure that our tax dollars are spent responsibly. And it's going to take a lot of work.
Yeah, well, and I mean, it's got to start at the top. But can somebody help me and explain to me, like I'm 8 years old, why they don't vote out these people who are making these decisions? Why don't they vote someone in who's going to just shake things up and change it? I mean, a lot of Democrats are freaking out and they can't stop talking terribly about Trump right now, but at least he's busting up the old boys group where anything goes and we'll do what we want and everybody's just going to go status quo, and he's trying to find a way to make our dollars go farther. Why doesn't Illinois try to find someone like that?
Yeah, I think that's something that a lot of Illinoisans yearn for. Unfortunately, I think part of the reality here is that those very large expenses in the state and local budgets that we spoke about, being going towards government unions and government pensions, that's a very large voting block in the state of Illinois. Mm-hmm. So there is sort of this built-in, to use maybe an overused term, machine of public sector unions that have the resources to run a political campaign and to throw dollars at your political campaign to fund it, that helps preserve not only Pritzker but also many other state and local leaders' positions in office, and try to insulate them from the reality and the outcomes that their policies would normally generate, being having them voted out of office and things like that. Yeah. So that's part of the very big thing we're working on. Also, many of the races in the state house below the governor are uncontested. We have a major issue with uncontested elections. People just, either being in uncompetitive districts because of gerrymandered maps that have been drawn, or a lack of belief that there's an opportunity to actually change things, that we don't have as many candidates. That's something that we're working on in improving ballot access for candidates of all types to challenge these races that are uncontested, because when we don't have a contested election, nobody can face the consequences of their actions. There's no real choice or real voice that voters get to exercise if there's only one name on the ballot.
Yeah, and if you don't have some serious reform pretty soon, y'all are done. I mean, you're the risk of you just being bankrupt is very much a thing.
Absolutely, we have the nation's worst pension crisis. It's growing, over $144 billion in public pension debt at the state level, another $75 billion at the local level. If you believe the government numbers, independent rating agencies say it's more than likely about double that, and eating up a quarter of our budget. So it's a very serious issue, crowding out services and other types of spending that Illinoisans expect, driving up taxes, and we're going to change right now.
All right. Bryce Hill, Director of Fiscal and Economic Research at the Illinois Policy Institute. That, my Illinois friends, is where your money is going. Call your legislators, tell them to fight. I guess maybe to no avail, but tell them to fight anyway. Bryce, thank you.
Thanks for having me, Fawn.
Bye-bye.